Ladies and gentlemen. Smoke. Jokes. I like that shit.
I like smoking weed. I think smoking weed is what I'm happy that it's like going to be more available to the youth now, because before it was just alcohol was being shoved down your throat. Drink, and it's like I actually think that's pretty damaging. Alcohol I think is way more damaging than weed. Honestly, anything if it's out of proportion. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but you know, if there's too much of something, it's never good. And I think it's crazy that alcohol is kind of shoved down our throats. Whereas some drugs, I think, have the capability, the drugs, some of them that are illegal, I think they have the capability actually to raise you up, raise your consciousness. Alcohol brings you down. Something like acid, for example, kind of has the ability to raise your, like, I think Trudeau should implement like a mandatory Trippin' Balls Tuesday, okay? Where like every Tuesday we put a little bit of acid in our coffee and just like, you know, have our minds being blown. Wouldn't that be so sweet? That'd be so, imagine like it'd be way better than blowing up other countries. You know, our minds being blown. There's something there. I like acid, and you don't want to do it all the time. You want to do it with the right people, right place, right time. For one of the times I did it, I was at a cottage, and it was perfect. And I was like laying in some lily pads, you know, as you do, in this like little dinghy. And I was enjoying myself, and I had one of the most beautiful epiphanies. It was this like, you know, moment where I was laying there, and it sounds ridiculous when I repeat it, but in the moment, it was really beautiful. Like I was laying there, and I realized that my head was shaped like a dome. Okay, I was like, oh, but also that the world was shaped like a dome, and I was like, oh my God, like, I felt like it was this sense of belonging, like, I'm a dome, the world's a dome, like, wrong, and it was this feeling of like one love that like rushed over my system, and I was like, oh, one consciousness, one love, like it all kind of came together for me, and it was so beautiful, you know, and that's when I was like, man, everyone needs to do this, mandatory Trippin' Balls Tuesday, I'm telling you, I think this is the way to do it. The only thing with acid, though, and the reason why it should be legal is because sometimes it can go badly. Like if you don't know how much you're taking, you don't know what type, you know. So like I went to a music festival, and I like to do my acid in the daytime, because then you get to see all the beautiful colors, and in a music festival you can like see the sound waves pretty much. I'm like, I see the music, you know, so it's a perfect time to do it. So I went to this music festival where you camp out and then you walk into the festival. So me and my pals, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, toast and acid, perfect. So I did a little acid, but I didn't this acid was called Tiger Paw because it just like smacks you right across the face, and I didn't know that. So I did my hit, and then normally it takes about 45 minutes, you know, for acid to kick in, but this was like 10 minutes later. I'm like walking around the campgrounds, and I'm like I'm getting like really high, like the ground's looking all wet. I'm like, what? Like a dragonfly flew over my shoulder, and I thought for sure it was like a 747. I was like, holy shit! Like it was a lot, and I was like, where, you know, when you don't know where a high is gonna go, I'm like, I don't know where this is if this is how I am 10 minutes in, like I'm gonna be rocked. And I was, an hour later, I'm like, I was like sitting in my trunk, you know, and my friends were like, okay, Adrienne, like we got to go into the festival. Like it's time to get your things. And I'm like, I have things. Like I was done. But I'm like, okay. So I pulled myself together, and I'm walking into this festival. You know, I'm doing the walk where my knees are way too high because the ground is like coming up to me. You know, so I'm like just trying to make it in the world. Okay, and I'm telling you this next part not because I'm trying to gross you out, but you need to understand where I was coming from, okay? I was on my period. So now I gotta deal with this shit. And this is kind of fucked up to deal with when you're not fucked up, but now I'm fucked up. You know, like my arms are no longer a part of my body, so I'm like, how am I supposed to handle myself? So I'm walking to this festival, and I gotta change my tampon, okay? And it's not like I can just use, you know, a washroom. It's a music festival. And these porta potties are like 150 degrees. Like there's piss, there's shit everywhere. And normally when you use a porta potty at a festival festival or at a concert, what do you normally do? You barely touch it, right? Like you walk in and you like sit down and you're like, oh, you don't sit down. You like just hover and you're just like nervous for humanity as a whole. And you're like, what are people doing? And you get out and that's the whole thing. But I can't do that, right? I gotta make this place my home, okay? So I'm like in there and I'm like cleaning. I felt like this guy was there. I was like cleaning it, you know? And I finally go to like sit down and now I gotta change it, right? And I don't care if you're a man or whatever, okay? This was the trippiest experience of my life, okay? Like I was like, had to rev myself up to pull it. Because like, what if I pull it out and then just like everything comes out? Like I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was like this point. Finally, I'm like, okay. And I felt like if I pulled it, I felt like I was doing like an exorcism. You know, I was like, you know? I don't know how long I was in there either. And then I was like, did I put one back in? Did I already put, like it was, could have been there for 5 minutes. I could have been there for 2 hours. I have no idea. At one point, someone knocked on the door. I was like, come in. I was like, do I live here? Like, what's happening?